back to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial on North Shore 1049. My name is Marc Freedman. I'm President and CEO of Freedman Financial, located in Peabody, Massachusetts, right on Cross Street, right above Alto Forno Restaurant, and right across the street from the North Shore Mall. We've been providing financial planning and investment management advice to individuals and families all around the North Shore, the Merrimack Valley, the southern New Hampshire area, for more than 51 years. No, not me. I'm 53, so I would have been 2 when my dad started this firm. I was in diapers back then. Dad started our business in an environment where financial planning was not something that anybody even talked about. Basically, back in the 60s, you worked for a big company, you were short a pension, you got your Social Security, you had a few $1,000s in the bank, you had a house that was worth $29,000 or $39,900, and that was about it. Maybe, just maybe, you could save $25 extra a week to put that aside, but the world has changed. And man, has it changed a lot. The idea of pensions, it's a rarity for folks these days. If you work for a municipality, you work as a teacher, you work as a police officer, a firefighter, a town worker, yeah, you're bound to get a pension. If you work for still some of the big companies out there, you may have a pension, but most of you realize that if you're joining some of these big companies now, the pension isn't there for you, but it's there for those that were there for a while. It's up to you now to put your money aside, for you to do the saving, for you to be diligent, so that when the time comes for you to retire, whatever that might look like, and whenever the paycheck stops, that there will be money there to replace it through some kind of an income stream. Yeah, maybe you'll get Social Security, maybe you'll collect maybe an inheritance, whatever it might be, but ultimately it's going to be on you to have to draw income from the investments and assets that you have to support your lifestyle. Anyways, when we last left, we were talking about the value of financial planning and how financial planning is I call it the pie of what we do when it comes to money. Wealth management, investment services, those are slices within the pie, but financial planning is the big pie. And one of the things that we need to do is to kind of go through an exercise when doing financial planning, and it's understanding what are your goals. And those goals are important to understand. So I started by asking an initial question. The first question was, imagine you had all the money you ever wanted. What would you do with it? Imagine you had all the money you ever wanted. What would you do with it? Well, that's kind of a tough one, but perhaps you think, well, I'd travel, I'd give money to the kids, I'd help to pay off their education, I'd pay off my mortgage perhaps. Maybe I'd put some money aside for my retirement, but what is a lot of money? How much is a lot of money? So let me tighten up that question a little bit more. I want you to imagine you had all the money you ever wanted, but you went to go see your doctor and the doctor told you, congratulations, you're in fabulous health, but according to our readings, sometime between year 6 and year 10, you were going to die without notice. Imagine that. Think about that. What would you do? Would you think about your money a little bit differently now? What would you do with the money that you now have, knowing that you have 5 years left? It could be 10 years, it could be 9.6 years, who knows, but somewhere, year 6 to year 10, boom, you're gone. What would you do? Makes you think about money a little bit differently. But then comes the toughest one. Imagine you had all the money you ever want, but your doctor told you you have 24 hours left to live. And you'll be healthy for the next 24 hours, but then you're gone. What will you regret you never accomplished? That kind of really hits home now, doesn't it? What will you regret you never accomplished? Perhaps if you think of it that way, might that allow you to think about using your money a little bit differently? Saying, how long do I continue to save for a rainy day? How long do I enjoy my money? Because there's one thing for certain. Everybody's taught us the importance of saving for our future, whether you do it or not, but everybody's talked about the importance of saving for the future. The question really becomes, who will teach you how to spend that money? Because once you have that money, it gets awfully scary, doesn't it? It gets very scary. Well, that's part of what we do at Freedman Financial, is not only help you save your money, but 65% of our clients are in retirement mode. They're preparing to spend their money. And they're scared because the one thing they don't want to have happen is what? They don't want to run out of money. They don't want to run out. And I will tell you this, if you knew how long you were going to live, Man, that would be easy. But you don't. But you don't. No, if you knew how long you were going to live, making that Social Security decision, when am I going to take Social Security? That would be a lot easier. If you knew when you were going to die, you could start to plan, what are some of those final vacations? What are some of the things that I wish I said to my children or gifted to my family or talked about? But you don't know. None of us know. So how do we maximize? How do we maximize our life with the money that we have, the resources we've accumulated, so that we can achieve the goals that we want? And the way to do that, it starts with financial planning. And it starts with first taking a snapshot of what you own, less what you owe. Now, what does that mean? What do you own? It's more than just your 401k. It's more than just your investment account. It's more than just the money in the bank. It's all of this stuff put together. It's the value of your house, the value of insurance policies you might have, an annuity you might own. Maybe you've got gold in the bank. I don't know what you have. Just anything that has a value to it. It's all of it. Do you have it down on a piece of paper that says, this is what I'm worth? And then subtracting out all the things that you owe. I love it when people say to me, well, I don't have any debt except my mortgage. No. Your mortgage is debt. There is good debt and bad debt. Mortgage can be considered good debt, but a personal loan to somebody, a credit card debt, maybe even a student loan at 72 years old, that is bad debt. But it's all debt. So you have to take everything you own, subtract out everything you owe to get the net worth that you have. So first we need to understand that, and then next we need to understand what is it that goes into your house and what goes out of your house. It's a lot easier to measure what comes in, isn't it? Because when I ask you how much do you think you spend every month, you may not want to answer that question. You may not even care to know what the answer is to that question. But think about that. The sources of income that come in could be your salary. It could be Social Security. It could be gifts still from mom and dad. It could be anything. It could be dividends from your investment account. It could be anything. Those are monies that come in. And just because some of them don't come from employment, let's say dividends, I love people that say, well, the dividends that I get from my investments, that doesn't count towards my income. Or the money that mom and dad give me as gifts, that doesn't count towards my income. Well, unless you're taking that money and putting it aside and not using it, it's certainly counting towards your income because you're spending it. The best way for me to measure whether you're saving money is to ask you a very simple question. When I look at the value of your bank account last year, is it larger this year than it was last year? And if the answer is no, it means you're spending everything that comes into the house. So it's really not that difficult to figure out how much you spend if we know what's coming in and nothing's going up in the bank account. Because generally, if you set up a 401k, for instance, you have that taken out of your paycheck before you take home any money. And that's how many people prefer to pay for things. They don't want to have the responsibility to have to write checks or make transfers of money to investment accounts. Now, many years ago, when I got started in this business, my father handed me a book called The Wealthy Barber. It was a book written by David Chisholm. It sold 3-4 million copies. It tells the story about a guy who was a barber, and I forget where in the country, somewhere in the middle part of the United States. And he had a beautiful home. And he seemed to do just great, but all he did was cut hair. And people were asking, how were you able to develop such a successful life for yourself and be able to walk into retirement when you wanted? And he said it was started with a very simple strategy. He said, the first thing I did was I paid myself first. What he did was whatever he made every week, 10% of it went to savings, went to investing. It was really that simple. And he started doing that when he was 18 years old. And he invested just ordinarily. He put some money in the bank, put some money in different types of investment products, but didn't trade, didn't switch, didn't start to buy and sell and all that stuff. He just diligently put money away every week. And the power of compounding, the power of being diligent to pay yourself first, became an enormously successful strategy. And it's the strategy that many people neglect to take on themselves. They say, well, the only saving that I can afford to do is I will save in my 401k up to my company match. Well, that's not a bad idea, but it's not enough. If you're saying, well, that's all I can afford to put aside, perhaps the challenge is that the expenses that you've created in your life are more than you can handle. That might mean that your house that you own is probably too large. The mortgage that you have is too big. The lifestyle that you lead is too expensive. But unfortunately, you have FOMO, the fear of missing out. And you want to keep up with everybody else. You have to have, look, even my daughters today, they don't have a purse. They have a Coach purse. They have a Vera Bradley bag. You know, the kids wear, well, I won't even say the N sneakers because I think that's ridiculous now. I'm never buying those sneakers again. But let's say there's Reebok sneakers and I won't even say them because they own them too. Whatever, Converse sneakers. It's just drive me nuts. But people will spend money on ridiculous, everything has to have a name to it. Come on! Oh, I got my Vineyard Vines shirt. It's crazy. I remember my father-in-law. My father-in-law loved to just wear blue sweatshirts. That's all the guy wore, blue sweatshirts. And so we thought, all right, well, you know, Grandpa or Dad, my father-in-law, just seemed to wear the same ones. They were getting a little ratty. They were getting frayed at the collar. So for Hanukkah, I bought him a blue sweatshirt with the Champion logo on it. He says, what the hell do I want this for? I said, Dad, it's a blue sweatshirt. He says, I'm not promoting anybody. I don't need any name on my shirt. He says, just give me a blue sweatshirt. He says, can we take off the label? I mean, I don't know how to take off the label. He made me return the stupid sweatshirt. But our lifestyles today are different. Everything seems to have a name attached to it. Think about how much wine we buy at restaurants today compared to the amount of wine and beverages you bought a generation ago. When you went out with your parents when you were a kid, did they order bottles of wine? I know that I worked at the Ship Restaurant. Remember the Ship Restaurant out in Linfield, Route 1? The giant tall ship. Actually, it started out, I don't know if you know this, if you were around long enough. I wasn't, but I've seen pictures. In the 40s and 50s, did you know that the Ship Restaurant was actually a tugboat? It was built as a tugboat restaurant. And then in the years that followed, they turned the tugboat into a tall ship. Most people have no recollection of the tugboat. They saw the tall ship that existed was called the Ship Restaurant. So I worked there as a waiter for a number of years. I actually worked as a restaurant manager right after graduating from college. And we had a wine list. And the wine list, you'd deliver the wine list to the table, every table you'd visit. Maybe 1 in 40 or 50 people would order a bottle of wine. People just didn't order bottles of wine. Today, man, has that changed. And you realize that when you buy a bottle of wine at a restaurant, generally you're paying 3 to 4 times what you would pay for it if you walked into your local liquor store. That's the markup, 300 to 400%. But we seem to have this lifestyle that says, oh, we have to do that. We have to spend that kind of money. Folks, if you want to try to be successful in saving towards your retirement, you need to pay yourself first, and you need to look at the expenses of what you need to stop doing. A lot of it is very simple. I mean, just add up. If you would have been able to look at your credit card or even able to track it somehow, take a look at how much money you spend at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts every month. I mean, that stuff's ridiculous how much you're spending there. How much you're spending on eating out. Eating out is the largest expense that most people have. You could eat at home. It's a lot easier. But that's changing. That's all changing. So we run into some challenges. But you need to know what's coming in versus what's going out. Once we understand what we're able to save and what we need to spend, now we can begin to build your plan. We start to look at all of the various assets that you have. Are they bank assets? Are they investment assets? Is it an IRA? Is it a 401k? Is it an annuity? Is it a pension that you're potentially entitled to? All sorts of things. And we look at those investments and we say, are they invested properly to align with your goals? That's a critical question. Are those investments aligned properly to hit your goals? Now, many people seem to believe that buying and selling seems to be the way to go, the strategy that's necessary. I need to get in, I need to get out. You follow the day-to-day fluctuations that happen on CNBC, on Bloomberg, on Kramer, on wherever you listen. And every day there's another this is the stock that's going to blow through the sky. This is the stock that's going to kill you. This is the one that you thought you were going to love, but you're going to hate. Or have you heard about this idea? I can't tell you how many stories we hear about all the time. And people want to buy into these stories. Stop it. Just stop. I think anyone who has a net worth under $5 million should stop buying individual stocks. You should buy mutual funds. You should buy exchange-traded funds. You should have exchange-traded funds, index funds, all of those types of things. That's what's important. Look, I think most of our listeners here have net worths under $5 million. I'm going to guess that that's the case. There's a few. Congratulations, muzzle tough to all of you if you're doing better than that. But for the most part, the people that we're talking with, the clients that we see in our office have net worths generally under $5 million. Sometimes more than that. But it's right around, it's under that number. But here's why you don't want to buy an individual stock. Individual stocks are dangerous. They move up, they move down, they have great impact to your portfolio, and the rationale for why they move up or move down is highly irrational. And I will tell you this, if you wanted to go buy a stock, let's say it's Amazon or Netflix or GE or Pepsi or Bank of America or whatever it is, and you want to buy 100 shares of that stock, how much information do you really know about that stock? Or maybe it's a report you read, or Kramer spoke highly of it. Remember, portfolio managers are buying millions of shares of that same stock. Do you think they know a little bit more about what's likely to happen in that stock than you do? Of course they do. And you know what else a portfolio manager has that you and I don't? They have a rational attachment to the investments, not an emotional one. So when the markets go down, when Kramer screams from the roof, when you hear that a friend just lost a bunch of money in a stock, or you heard that there's a new trade tariff coming through and it could be the end of the markets, and you're acting emotionally, the portfolio manager who owns these stocks is acting rationally. They're actually calling the company. They're talking to the CEO, they're talking to the manufacturers, they're talking to the people working the lines, the managers, the distributors, all of these people. And when they buy the stocks that they buy in these portfolios, you know what they do? They set a sell price and a buy more price. They know what they're doing. They have a discipline. When we buy individual stocks, we do not have a discipline. That is problematic. That's called speculation. And nobody wants to be a speculative investor when they're planning for their retirement. That, my friends, is what we call financial advice in a language you can understand. If you want to get more of that, we provide it every Friday through our newsletter. It lands in your inbox at 10:30. Go to my website, freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman, 2 E's and a D, financial.com. Go to any page on my website. Scroll to the very bottom. You'll get to put your name in, your email address, drop a comment to us, say what you'd like, just hit the send button, and the email, our newsletter, what we call planning pointers, will land in your box next Friday, starting at 10:30. Over 7,500 subscribers are in. We've been doing it for over 11 years, but we've got to take a break. We'll be right back. I want to talk to you about the 8,000 days of retirement. When we get back, you're listening to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial on North Shore 104.9.